I was halfway through mowing the front lawn at my Florida home when I heard a loud holler from the back pool area. I froze in my tracks. My kids were swimming with friends, and it was quiet until that moment. The voice was booming, broken by static. I dropped the mower and sprinted toward the screened lanai. Then I saw him, completely naked, soaked from head to toe, straddling the edge of my pool, waving his arms like a wrecking ball, shouting, "You get out. That pool belongs to me." My mouth hung open. I sprinted to the door and locked it just as he leaned forward to dive in, claiming territorial ownership. Neighbors peeked out. Kids shrieked and scrambled backward. I staggered. Was he being serious? Demanding the pool like he had some ironclad claim. I looked at my smartphone camera to record but froze, unsure if this was a prank or a hallucination. Then I saw blue lights in the driveway, officers stepping out, flipping on body cams, eyes wide. This was no ordinary trespass. The naked man pointed at the cop. "He works for me. I tell you, he belongs to me." He sounded delirious or delusional, yet oddly confident. Everything else faded, neighbors retreating, kids crying, dogs barking. The property transformed into a surreal stage, water dripping off the naked intruder. Sheriff lights reflected in the pool, a fully uniformed officer inching forward with caution. The voice on the body cam audio broke through. "Sir, you need to step out of the pool," said the officer calmly. "This is private property. Please wrap yourself." But the stranger only shouted louder, "You all do as I say. I own this." His voice echoed off the heated, screened enclosure like a cruel joke. I realized then. My heart pounded. Adrenaline surged and I knew this scene would define the rest of the day. While the officer maintained distance and composure, even credit card numbers, absurd demands, delivered with absolute seriousness. At one point, he insisted we deliver ice cream and a cold drink immediately, waving arms like a dictator commanding a subservient nation. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. The officer glared at him through the screen door, obviously torn between law and absurdity. In that moment, to me and every spectator, it became clear this was more than a trespasser. It was a performance with no script, an existential claim to someone else's property, naked and unrelenting. The officer's voice came again. "Sir, step out of the pool. Step away from the water. You are not permitted to swim here." The naked man hesitated, eyes locked on the officer, and repeated, "He works for me. I own this pool." My children hid behind me. I tried to keep calm while watching the officers communicate through open windows, attempting to trick the naked man into compliance. Suddenly he lunged toward the edge again, mustering a furious strength, and screamed, "I will take this pool." All neighbors recoiled. A dog barked relentlessly. A little girl screamed. The officers tightened their stance. That's where we end this first section. The naked man in a delusional demand standoff. Officers startled. Property invaded and our breaths drawn taut with tension. They were inches apart now. Law enforcement and a man who believed he had divine pool rights. The body cam would pick up everything. Nothing was scripted. I didn't know his real name yet. I didn't know whether he had a reason or mental crisis. Our next section will unfold how officers handle a fully nude trespasser claiming dominion, the neighbor reactions, and the escalating absurdity plus legal angles you won't see coming. But for now, the adrenaline, the confrontation, the naked demandeur here, watching, wondering, how does this end? Who actually owns the pool? What happens next? By the time the second sheriff unit pulled into the driveway, and still yelling commands, like he was some kind of backyard emperor, the officers stood at the edge of the enclosure now, peering through the mesh screen that separated law from lunacy. One of them, a taller deputy with a southern drawl, tapped on the doorframe and calmly announced, "Sir, we're gonna need you to step out of the water. Now." The man's response. He dove under and did a dramatic backstroke like he was in the Olympics, popping up in the deep end and shouting, "You want me out? You bring me a towel embroidered with my initials DP, 'cause that pool belongs to Danny Prince." That's when everything clicked for me. Danny Prince. I'd heard the name in whispers at HOA meetings. A no nuisance. A guy who'd been evicted from a house down the street months ago after building an unauthorized tiki bar with a hot tub on stolen HOA land. Nobody had seen him since until today, soaking wet in my backyard, acting like the pool was a birthright. I whispered to the officer closest to me, "He's Danny Prince. He doesn't live here. He doesn't live anywhere near here anymore." The deputy nodded and tapped his chest-mounted bodycam twice. "All on video. Just keep your family inside." That's when things got weirder. Danny started singing, loudly, off-key, a bizarre rendition of My House by Flo Rida. He splashed dramatically on the lyrics. Welcome to my house. Baby, take control now. The second deputy, the first muttered something under his breath and unlatched the screened pool door. Sir, you are trespassing on private property. This is not your house, not your pool, and if you don't get out, we'll be forced to detain you under Florida statute. Danny cut him off with a triumphant shout. Unlawful detainment. I am the pool owner. This is a sovereign swim zone. I swear, I saw one of the officers blink in disbelief. They weren't just dealing with a trespasser, they were dealing with a certified backyard sovereign citizen. And the pool was now his self-declared embassy. The officers exchanged a brief look and then stepped inside the enclosure. Danny, in response, swam to the middle and floated on his back like he was sunbathing in the Bahamas. You, step 1 foot closer and I'll file a class action lawsuit, he called out, raising one arm, like Moses parting the chlorine. Sir, we're asking you one last time. Exit the pool, or you will be removed. And then came the moment I never expected. Danny swam to the edge, pulled himself out of the water, slowly dripping, red-faced, and still very much naked, and held up his hands like a hostage negotiator. Fine, you want me gone? I need... 3 things. The entire neighborhood had gathered behind the hedges now, phones out, cameras rolling. One woman whispered, "Is this guy for real?" Another whispered back, "I think he's high on bath salts." Danny's demands were straight from a comedy skit. First, someone gets me a pineapple Fanta. Second, I want an apology from the pool owner. And third, and this is non-negotiable, I want to choose the playlist before I leave. The taller officer stepped forward. You'll get clothes, not Fanta. You'll get charges, not an apology. And the only playlist you're picking is the one playing in the back of our cruiser. Danny screamed like a child denied dessert and tried to cannonball back in. But he slipped, slammed his shin on the tile, and crumpled in a wet heap. That's when they moved in. Handcuffs, towel, blanket, flashing red lights, bouncing off the lanai walls. All of it captured on Bodycam and every neighbor's iPhone. The sovereign swimmer was subdued at last, but the aftermath was just beginning. The officers turned to me and asked the question that started the next chapter of this nightmare. Sir, did he damage anything while he was here? That's when I looked down at the pool filter cover, my outdoors, my kids' pool toys, and a pile of human clothes he'd apparently left by my AC unit, along with a half-eaten bag of Doritos. This wasn't over, not even close. The following morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I hadn't posted anything online, but someone else had. A neighbor's Ring camera footage caught the entire debacle: Danny's swan dive, his pineapple Fanta demand, and his dramatic arrest under pool lights, and it had already hit 90,000 views. TikTok by 8 a.m. By noon, it crossed 2.5 million, and then the comments came pouring in, only in Florida. Dude really said sovereign pool citizen. Give that cop a medal for keeping a straight face. This can't be real. Oh wait, it's Florida. Somehow, the moment the Bodycam footage was released under public records, local news outlets pounced. Channel 6 ran a piece titled, "Naked Trespasser Declares Pool Sovereignty. Deputies Remain Unamused." They included a short clip of Danny, soaked and furious, yelling, "I declare this pool free territory." That would have been hilarious if the damage hadn't turned out to be worse than I thought. When I had a pool technician come assess the system, he shook his head grimly after 10 minutes. He flooded the chlorinator with barbecue sauce, the guy said, holding up a greasy bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's. Turns out Danny had wandered into my outdoor kitchen before diving in and thought it'd be funny to season the water. I was looking at hundreds, possibly thousands in damage. Pool jets jammed, pumps fouled, and yes, somehow he'd even managed to stick a slice of pepperoni pizza into the intake vent. I was furious, but that emotion took a hard left turn when I got a call from the sheriff's office later that afternoon. The deputy, same one who'd cuffed Danny the night before, said, "Sir, you may want to sit down for this." We ran his background. I braced myself. Danny Prince is on probation. And here's not just a random guy with pool fantasies. He used to be your HOA vice president. That landed like a cinder block in my gut. I remembered him now, vaguely. He was the one who tried pushing through some ridiculous proposal 2 years ago to install coin-operated misters in the park. The board had voted him out after he allegedly funneled HOA fees into building his infamous backyard bar complete with plastic flamingos and a busted karaoke machine. But what chilled me most was what the deputy said next. He's convinced he still owns partial control of the HOA, claims he's the spiritual steward of the water resources. His words, not ours. That explained the madness. It wasn't just trespassing. He thought he was reclaiming territory. Even more troubling, his attorney had filed paperwork to argue diminished capacity in court, claiming Danny's behavior stemmed from chemical exposure and emotional trauma related to past HOA disputes. I wasn't buying it. This wasn't a mental break. This was someone trying to weasel out of consequences using chaos as camouflage. As news of the incident spread, the HOA board called an emergency meeting, not to apologize, mind you, but to investigate how a former member accessed a resident's property and whether pool compliance had been properly maintained. I nearly laughed when I read the email. They were questioning my gate locks and pool rules, rather than issuing a public statement condemning Danny's behavior. One board member said, the same lady who tried fining me for having wind chimes over 30 decibels, suggested I invited the incident by not maintaining clear signage that the pool was private. Really? You think someone needs a sign to tell them not to skinny dip in someone else's yard? It became clear. This wasn't just a one-off event. Danny was the symptom of a larger disease, infecting the HOA, the unchecked entitlement, the twisted belief that property lines were suggestions and rules only applied when convenient. And as much as I wanted to move on, I knew I couldn't. Not after what I found next. While replacing the pool cover later that week, I noticed something wedged behind the pool heater. It was a soggy manila envelope, sealed in duct tape inside. A handwritten pool manifesto. I'm not making this up. 12 pages of scribbled nonsense detailing how chlorinated freedom must not be restrained by corporate tyranny, along with a crude map of our neighborhood where my pool was labeled the mother splash point. Danny had planned this. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment stunt. He believed this was his comeback to and he was just getting started. But what he didn't know was that his viral fame had painted a bullseye on him. The sheriff's department wasn't laughing anymore, and neither was the judge assigned to his case. Retribution was coming. The court date couldn't have arrived soon enough. I walked into the county courthouse on a humid Thursday morning, still barely believing this saga had come to that point. But there he was, Danny Prince, sitting in the front row of the courtroom with a borrowed suit, no tie, and socks that had pink flamingos all over them. Still refusing to read the room, his lawyer kept adjusting his collar like he'd been dragged into this circus against his will. A few seats behind Danny sat two very vocal Free the Pool Man supporters holding cardboard signs that read, "He just wanted to swim, and water is for everyone." This wasn't a courtroom anymore, it was performance art. But the judge, not amused. When the proceedings began, the prosecution wasted no time painting Danny as not just an eccentric, but as a repeat offender with a history of HOA-related disturbances, property violations, and 2 past restraining orders, one of which involved a neighbor's koi pond and a stolen inflatable flamingo. They submitted the Ring camera footage, the police Bodycam, and even that pool manifesto I found behind my heater. When the judge read the phrase "chlorinated revolution," he actually paused and blinked twice. Then came the defense. Danny's attorney argued diminished capacity, claiming Danny was undergoing a personal crisis of spiritual detachment and had acted out of desperation. After feeling ostracized from his former position of power in the he actually said Mr. Prince believed the water was calling him back to his community leadership role. The judge wasn't buying it. "This is a criminal trespass case," she said dryly. "Not a mythological hero's journey." I almost laughed. But then the HOA decided to chime in, and that's when things flipped. A board representative, Sandra Yu. The wind chime lady had been called as a character witness for Danny. I expected her to distance the HOA from him. Instead, she doubled down. "We believe Mr. Prince was unfairly removed from the HOA board 2 years ago. His heart has always been with the community, and we worry this prosecution is targeting a passionate but misunderstood man." The courtroom went silent. Even Danny looked shocked. That statement did something. Not legally, but publicly. Because once it was reported that an HOA was defending a naked trespasser who invaded someone's pool with barbecue sauce and a pineapple soda in hand, the internet had a field day. By nightfall, #PoolKaren and #free Danny Prince were trending again, but this time in mockery. Memes exploded across Instagram and Twitter. Someone even photoshopped Danny as Moses parting the waters of a pool while HOA board members floated on pool noodles. But here's where it got serious. That HOA testimony opened the door for my civil suit. My lawyer jumped on the opportunity and filed a motion the next morning, not just against Danny, but also against the HOA itself, on the basis of negligent encouragement, failure to formally disavow misconduct, and indirect liability for property damages. We subpoenaed emails, meeting notes, HOA, and what we found shocked me. There were at least 3 instances where Danny had emailed HOA board members weeks before the incident, talking about his return to the pool throne. One email even read, "The chlorine calls, I will not be ignored. If the gate is locked, I have ways." And you know what the reply from Sandra was? LOL, just don't get arrested again. That wasn't just negligence. That was enabling. And the judge agreed. While the criminal case against Danny wrapped with a 6-month probation, a restraining order, and a mandatory psychiatric evaluation, the civil case had just started boiling. And then came the day I never thought I'd see. The HOA formally apologized. Not publicly, not loudly, but through legal counsel, with a 4-page letter and a settlement offer. They were willing to cover full damages to my pool system, pay an additional fine for emotional distress, and get this, remove Sandra from the board as part of the agreement. The pool manifesto had sunk them. Their support for Danny backfired so spectacularly that their own insurance company demanded leadership changes. It wasn't just a win. It was poetic justice. But there was still one thing left to do, something I'd been waiting on since the first time Danny belly flopped into my life, and it involved giving the internet one last laugh. After everything, the chaos, the cameras, the court dates, and the HOA circus, there was still a lingering feeling that Danny had gotten off too easy. Sure, the court had slapped him with probation, and the HOA settled the civil suit. My pool had been restored. Sandra was booted from the board, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his bizarre, pineapple soda-fueled invasion deserved one last full-circle moment, and I had just a plan. About a week after the settlement, I reached out to a local comedian named Jimmy, who ran a small but wildly popular Florida satire YouTube channel. He'd already done a parody sketch of Danny's escapade that had racked up over 400,000 views in 2 days. I figured if people were going to laugh about it anyway, why not control the narrative? So I invited Jimmy and his crew over for a little reenactment shoot right in my backyard. We recreated everything. The knock on the gate, the crazy monologue about taking back the water, the moment Danny slipped on a wet noodle and crashed into my patio chair. Except this time, it wasn't Danny, it was Jimmy, wearing a full bald cap, fake mustache, and one of those absurdly long censored black bars that bounced every time he moved. And instead of pineapple soda, we gave him a sippy cup labeled HOA juice. I posted the sketch to my own channel, calling it Naked Pool Pirate. The Chlorine Chronicles had exploded. Overnight, the video hit 2.1 million views. Comments poured in. "This is Florida's Shakespeare. Give that black censor bar an Emmy. This is the only HOA drama I'd pay to see in theaters." But the real surprise, Danny watched it. I know because the next day he left me a voicemail. Gotta admit, it's kinda funny. Not all of it. "You got me good." He paused for a few seconds, then added, "You know, I was kinda lost for a while, and I guess I made you the villain in my head when really, I was just spiraling." That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. And honestly, I'll take it, because the truth is, I don't hate Danny. He is a walking hurricane of bad choices, wrapped in barbecue sauce and delusions of grandeur, but at least he finally saw how ridiculous it had gotten. And for once, he wasn't blaming everyone else. The neighborhood, meanwhile, had changed in ways I never expected. With Sandra gone, the new HOA board, now led by a level-headed retired engineer named Mr. Beltran, voted unanimously to establish clearer personal property boundaries, prohibit any HOA officer from acting solo, and even sponsor community mental health workshops. Yep, Danny Prince, Naked Pool Pirate, had unintentionally sparked the HOA's most productive reform in years. Kids started calling my pool Prince's Lagoon. I had it printed on a sign and mounted to the fence. Right under it, a smaller sign that reads, "No pirates, no pineapple soda, no exceptions." But the cherry on top, that police bodycam footage. The department had allowed me to request a redacted copy after the criminal case closed. So I did, and I edited it into a second video titled, "Police versus Naked HOA President, Full Footage, plus Homeowner Commentary." The best comment so far. "This is what happens when Florida man gets elected HOA president and forgets pants are required for negotiations." It still makes me laugh. Looking back, I never imagined I'd become the main character of a viral Suburban saga. I didn't ask for it. I just wanted a quiet backyard, a peaceful swim, and a break from the endless HOA politics. But maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes, life hands you a disaster, wrapped in a pool float and covered in sunscreen, and all you can do is hit record, tell your side of the story, and let the internet take it from there.